Board of Education regular meeting Tuesday, December 12th, 2020 at 7:01. And I have a roll call.
Mrs. Lala? Here. Mrs. Jeff? Here. Mrs. Urbach-Barkey? Mrs. Phillips? Here. Mrs. Theodore? Here. Mr. Berardi? Mr. Trujillo?
Here. Let's please rise for the pledge of allegiance led by the child flag leader.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mission statement. The mission of North School District 80 is inspiring educational excellence in a nurturing environment. Celebrate the success.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to invite our pride leaders up to the front and our teacher supervisor, Mrs. Shannon Russell. Mrs. Russell is our 8th grade math teacher. She is also a boys volleyball coach and is the pride sponsor this school year. So if we'll have all the pride leaders want to stay on the black line, and then nice and loud, tell the Board of Education your name.
Mary, Olivia, Paulina, Clarissa, Jessica, Alexandra, still Shannon Russell.
So the pride leaders are an amazing group. They do a lot of wonderful activities. They lead our school in a variety of different things. Freeze Pop Friday, and I don't want to take everything away from them, so they have planned what they're going to say and what they're going to do. But we did put together a presentation, so I'll turn it over to our pride leaders.
So we're really excited this year. We kind of started to reinvent Pride because it's new to me. So additionally, on top of Freeze Pop Fridays, our wonderful Pride team meets with me every month at least. And they decided they wanted to do a fun Friday as well. So, what are some fun Fridays you guys have sold? What have we done? Popsicles, what else? Popcorn balls? Smencils? That was a flop. But we tried. What are we doing for candy? Yeah, chocolate covered pretzels. So we're trying to do something once a month for the kids to get them excited for lunch and to be able to share in different celebrations. And this year, what do you guys want to give them? Yeah. So they all met during Christmas break and we decorated the holiday tree. This year our theme was There's No Place in Orange. So all of the kids in our district, in our school, did different gnome ornaments that they're really excited that you get to bring home and put on your tree. Go ahead. So they brought you one that they did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this year for Angel Tree, our whole school raised $5,000 and all of us pride leaders went to Target and we went shopping for the kids in need and we got like 8 carts full of stuff at Target and a lot of kids donated toys. So it was pretty fun for all of us to go shopping together. Miss Valerie couldn't fit in my car on the way home because there were so many presents. So they were able to donate 8 huge grocery carts from Target, and Salvation Army actually picked them up today, and they're all going to local families for the holidays. And these girls also put together like spreadsheets of what all the donations were asked, which ones came in, which ones we still needed, and they walked around with their little clipboards in Target, and we had a blast. What are we in the middle of doing right now for school? Candygrams? Yep, candygrams, and what else? You get points every morning. Yes, you're telling them how to spirit. Go ahead. Tell them how to say it.
Each
day of the week, there's a theme that the kids have to follow, and depending on how many students dress up for that day, they get PBIS points, and then the winner of that day gets points for creators.
Nicole, is on grade what is this?
So each time you participate, the grade that has the most points gets 5 points, and each time you get more points, the higher you go in the leaderboard.
Yes.
Yeah, and the winner for this Spirit Weeks gets a surprise.
Yes, so we were trying to compete with the other grades, but it's not just about Spirit Week, so we give points for best attendance, best lowest minors and majors, and also lowest tardies. Every week they get calculated, and Mr. Biaki puts that up in the lunchroom so the kids can see who's on the leaderboard and who they're getting points for. And then we will do a halfway through the year celebration in January for who's the leader. Eighth grade is very close, but we cannot get out fifth grade. And then we'll do a big celebration in the end of the year as well. Justin, you want to say one of the sentences?
Maybe a second also for teachers versus students volleyball. And we're going to do hungry hippos.
And they get to take pictures during the assembly and post them, and some of them were, yeah, some people did scoreboard, some people did the coaching of the teachers. They really like bossing the teachers around. Some of them did coaching for the kids. So they bring really great ideas to the table of things we can do to get the kids engaged and excited at school, and they're a great group of kids to work with. So, do you guys want to? I'll give the teachers one. In writing. Oh, yeah, you grab the part? Yeah.
So we'd like to thank you for everything you do for us at Giles School and for all the students. We really do appreciate it. What we would like to do now is take a picture with the Board of Education and our Pride leaders, and we'd like to post that on our district website. Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Pride leaders, you are certainly welcome to stay, but we understand if you need to leave.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you very much for that. Now I'd like to call to order the public hearing regarding North School District 80 2023 levy. And I have a roll call.
Mrs. Lala? Here. Mrs. Deck? Here. Mrs. Barnfield? Here. Mrs. McPhillips? Here. Mrs. Theodore? Here. Mr. Berardi? Mr. Trabuzio?
Here. Illinois law requires that a public hearing be held prior to the adoption of the Truth in Taxation Law. An adoption of the Truth in Taxation Law. A public hearing is not a dialogue or question and answer session between the board and the audience. It is a time when the public can present information and express opinions. The board's role is to listen intently to all comments presented by the public, and then consider those comments when the board deliberates on the adoption of the levy. Presentation.
Okay. The first slide that's up there is the levy. The levy is that's the ask. That's what we're asking the county for. That's not necessarily what we are going to receive. On that form, it's the same exact numbers that were in the presentation on the last committee meeting when we presented the tentative levy. We did not change anything. So that, in and of itself, is a 7.83% increase, but the assumption is that we will get around a 5.3% increase. Last year, when we did the levy, we asked for the same exact thing. We asked for a 7.8% increase, and we ended up with a 5.39% increase. Also, for all the board members in front of you, with the supplemental information from the audit, the very last page has this historical history of the past 5 years tax extensions. So if you look in there, you'll see from 2018 through 2022 what our tax extensions were. Then the next slide in the presentation is our fund balances. For the truth in taxation law, you have to present your fund balances. So what we have here are what our fund balances were. The first column is what they were as of November 30th, and then the second column is what they were as of June 30th. What I think this slide shows is, one, it shows that we were responsible with our funds last year, that we ended the year in a good place. At the end of the year, what our total fund balance was, $8,081,548. What it also shows is how important our tax dollars are and how reliant we are on our tax dollars. Because as of November 30th, we had only received one of the fall tax installments, and our fund balances at that time were $5,463,290. So if you look at that column, it really shows you how dependent we are on our tax dollars. When they don't come in, how our funds just start depleting themselves. But when we do get our tax dollars, we are spending them fiscally, responsibly, and trying to be very transparent with all of our transactions. What this slide also shows is, as of November 30th, the loans. We had paid back part of our loan from working cash to Ed at that point, but as of this date, we have now paid back all of our loans. So our tax dollars have started coming in, so thank you to everyone who paid their taxes. We are very happy. We have received about 94% of what we should have. So we're almost at 5 million, what we've collected so far. We're like 4.8. So we are very grateful for all of our tax dollars that came in.
Just to clarify, when you say loans, it's the resolutions that we passed
Yes.
previously. We've paid those back now. So
Yeah.
previously we moved money from working cash into the ed fund, and now we've paid that back.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, okay, thank you for that, and just to reiterate some of that and explain some things, I just wanted to mention. Over the past 4 months, we've discussed the tax levy at our finance committee meetings. The district is heavily reliant on taxes to pay the majority of our expenditures. The district has also felt the impact, the cost of living, and has seen an increase in all expenditures. The district is part of the property tax extension limit law, commonly referred to as PTEL, which is commonly known as being tax capped. This means that the district is limited to an increase in taxes that is 5% or the rate of inflation, called CPI, whichever is less over the past year. This year's CPI is over 5%, so the district is limited to a 5% increase, not including new construction, new property, or tax increment financing costs. To ensure that the district receives the total amount that is allowable under the PTEL law, we have to levy over 5% to capture the new construction and property. When we levy for 7.8%, we do not believe we will receive 7.8. The assumption is that we will receive around 5.3. As can be mentioned, for the 2022 levy, we asked for a 7.8 increase. When we received the 2022 2022 extension, we received a 5.39% increase. We project a similar result for this year. So, having heard and seen all that, any comments? No. Okay. That goes to the public hearing. On to action items. Consider a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Can I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Two motions. And Maria?
Mrs. Lala,
Yes.
Mrs. McPhillips,
Yes.
Mrs. Urbach Barnfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Deck,
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio.
Yes. Motion is approved. Recognition of visitors, thanks to all who received. Any correspondence? No correspondence. Public participation. Do we have any listed? Time to about public participation, Maria will read it.
Welcome to the Norwich School District 80 Board of Education meeting. At each regular and special meeting which is open to the public, the Illinois School Code and Board of Education policies require members of the public and board employees to be afforded time to comment or ask questions. The board's agenda designates this portion of the meeting to recognize those visitors and provide an opportunity for comments or to ask questions. The board asks the speakers identify themselves and limit comments or questions no more than 5 minutes. The 5 minutes may be shortened if the president must conserve time to give the maximum number of individuals an opportunity to speak. Speakers are reminded to conduct themselves with respect and towards others. The board also requests that speakers refrain from identifying individual students or staff. Speakers who choose to identify specific speakers or staff do so at their own risk. Please keep in mind the opportunity to engage in public comment at a school board meeting does not insulate speaking from libel violation of privacy. Lastly, if someone wishes to present an unresolved complaint to the board requests that you contact Mrs. Guzik. Thank you, and the board now looks forward to your comments and questions.
Thank you. First, speaker for public participation, Leonetta Kopeck.
I'm the mother of a student who was expelled from this district, and I want to point out some stuff. My son was threat to this school, and I want to pass it down and show you guys what's happening, even though my child was expelled, and he was wrongly accused of all the stuff which he's accused of. I have every proof. I've never had the chance to speak up, either with my child. So am I allowed to show you guys this?
You can present information there, it's not a dialogue time, so they'll listen
Yeah,
to
sure.
it for the 5 minutes. Yeah.
I want you to guys to see us down, and this is what's happening in this school, even after my son is expelled. And I will not stop till I get the justice for my son. Those are the students who are still purchasing and you can read it. So if we're so concerned about safety, and if my son took away the right of all the students, and he was accused by those students who testified against him. And I told the principal to call those people and talk to them again. I will not stop. am not stopping for my son. My son does not deserve this. I have statements of my son, of the whole situation, how it happened, but nobody wanted to listen. I never got the chance to say this stuff, either my son. I have more of these envelopes since November 2nd until today. I was researching everything. Now I'm looking for schools for my son, and no school is accepting him because of this. As soon as I say expulsion of something he didn't do. My family's been through a lot. I love my son. And I have every proof, and I can prove it. Every single person who came forward and told you guys this, I have a proof, and all the questions to ask those kids. Do you guys want to see the statement from my son?
Besides, what kind of Mrs. Buzik would be needing to meet with you and review this.
But I want the Board of Education to know, because at this moment, I don't trust anyone. I don't know if Mrs. Buzik will give you guys this information.
The superintendent is essentially the CEO of the whole district.
But I tried to contact Mrs. Buzik, and she said, well, all the students came forward, so. Do you remember that, Mrs. Buzik?
I remember. I asked you to meet with me and to look at the evidence you have, and you didn't, so.
This was this morning.
I'm happy to meet with you and hear about the evidence, not just this morning, previous, before the hearing on Thursday. I asked you to meet with me.
Yeah, but because we were not allowed to speak because we had attorneys.
So it's not that I didn't want to speak with you, I wanted to speak with you. Your attorney had you not speak with me.
And in those conversations, those conversations are between students who are doing this stuff in the school. And only my son got that blame. Now I wonder why. They call him Alex disease, stage 9. Alex got beat up here and after school. I showed you the picture, Mrs. Buzik, remember? All of you guys have children here in school, right? So after reading this, do you guys still feel safe?
The board has to leave it to the administration, the superintendent, and principals to investigate whatever's presented, and they're committed to doing whatever is needed for safety and whatever investigation comes forth with that. If when you meet with Mrs. Kruse, you have information to present it to her, and from there she can investigate or direct how it's going to be investigated. And then once evidence is presented, or once evidence is collected, it's presented to the board. But the board is not able to take proof and make any sorts of judgment. It has to go through those who run the schools.
Okay, my son is kicked out of school. He hasn't had any education since November 2nd. And I'm telling you guys that he's not in fault on any of those accusations. They were put out on him. So I'm asking you guys, what am I supposed to do? Because I am not stopping at this.
sorry we had to reach the 5 minutes. We understand. We'll come to the judgment we have. We presented the evidence we were given, and we have to move on. Second speaker is Vasquez.
No, I'm not going to speak. Thank you.
Okay. FOIA requests, there's four FOIA requests. They will be reviewed at the district website. To presentation, school resource officer for district.
Thank you. The last week, the board asked me to meet with Chief Goss, and Chief Goss has kindly come to our meeting tonight. He's open for questions, if anyone has any questions as we're going through the presentation. So I'm presenting on a school resource officer, commonly known as an SRO. So I started out the presentation sharing with everyone what support do we currently receive from the Norwich Police Department. So currently, there is an auxiliary officer who visits both buildings during the school day. And the purpose of this officer is to build relationships, do safety checks, check the physical building. He spends about an hour, sometimes a little bit more in each building. Typically, we'll be at lunch at Giles during the lunchtime for the 7th, 8th grade lunch. We also receive support with our drills. They attend safety meetings with the district, are present at the schools whenever we have anything, and they conduct investigations whenever that is needed. The Ridgewood school resource officer that they currently have at Ridgewood assists District 80 with police issues. So these are issues that come up that involve the police department. Purpose in that also is to build relationships, issue tickets, join administration on home visits when that is needed. And of course, there's an education piece that we currently see for the Norwich Police Department, and that's the DARE program, which is in 5th grade. They also come in and help us facilitate school-wide trainings, and just recently did a wonderful training with our nurses in order for them to be certified to be holding naloxone in the schools, which we are certified to have to do January 1st of 2024. So the question is then why? Why are we looking at additional layers of support? Well, we have found that research shows that when law enforcement and the school community build relationships, that people when you have those relationships, you see a community that is just more productive, a community that works together, a community that doesn't see as much crime because people are building that relationship and helping each other. There's also a safety aspect of working with the police department on planning and education, and then in the moment action. So if something does happen in the moment, that there is someone that is available. They're not far away to make a phone call, but just in the moment action. And then there is a question of traffic. This is a big issue, as we know. In school safety and respect for our school neighborhood and our neighbors has been a big issue with traffic, especially lately. And it's just going to get worse as the weather starts to change and we get more snow and restrictions on parking in the streets. So those would be 3 areas that we can be looking at adding different layers of support. If we looked at school resource officers for Norwich School District 80, they would continue to do education with the staff and with the students. They continue DARE, they continue working with us on social issues, probably expand some of that education, safety plans and drills. They would also help us with residency and truancy. So we could potentially not have a residency firm. We would just work with the Norwich Police Department with our SRO officer to do residency visits, which they do at Ridgewood. And also work on truancy. As you know, we've been focusing on truancy, tardies, absenteeism this year because it is part of our school plan, and it's in our school improvement plans. So that is a focus we've been working on. So they would be able to support us in that, the SRO, and attend court when needed if it gets to that point. They would also provide a different layer of protection. So violations in the district or in policies or violations of the law, they would be on site to work on student and staff safety and that traffic safety as well. And then continuing those personal relationships between law enforcement and students and families, promoting a greater respect for law enforcement in general. So that's the kind of 4 areas we would be seeing and support if we looked at a school resource officer. Any questions about those so far? So what would that entail if we wanted to look into a resource officer, 1 or 2 for our buildings? Well, there's an intergovernmental agreement with the Norwich Police Department, which we have an example of, so we would be able just to tailor that for our needs, and that would include what exactly we want the job to look like for us. After speaking with Chief Goss, we are able to decide that and what we want that person to focus on, or persons to focus on. They would work 40 hours a week, and we would work with the SRO to set the hours. If we did want an SRO officer later, let's say we're having a tournament, and it's the big tournament, the big Norwood Lighting Tournament, we could have an SRO officer attend that and either shift hours or pay additional time of overtime for that time. The intergovernment agreement works, but the district would pay 75% of the officer's salary. And then there's a district paid liability coverage. So there's liability insurance, there's general insurance, there's umbrella insurance, there's comprehensive automotive, and of course workman's compensation would have to be covered. In that case of the insurance, both Norwich Police Department and Norwich School District 80 would cover insurance. There would be a part that we would cover and a part that Norwich Police Department would cover. So that's kind of the logistics of what we'd have to work out if we are looking at a school resource officer or 2. You know, the benefits of a school resource officer, of course, is the building of the relationships. Implementing and the creation of safety plans. While the Norwich Police Department works with us on that now, this would really allow them to be much more hands-on and support in working on their safety plans. An increase of feeling of safety. You know, I think it's just sometimes people feel safer when they see an SRO officer around, staff and students. It allows us to have additional opportunities for trainings and drills because the person is on our schedule, so they're here with us and they can continue to work with us. And if something is seen on a drill, like for example today we had a lockdown drill at Giles. If there was some growth moment on there, we can work on that right away and not wait till the next time that we're out. We can increase student and staff preparedness for incidents and events because we would be practicing them more, talking about them more, have more of a focus on it. Increasing those relationships within the community. Educating students and staff on safety programs. Again, as I mentioned, the Norwich Police Department does come in and help us with this, but this could become something more common where the SRO officer is in the classroom much more. And then again, if we see something on as a need, we can address it right away. Research has shows with an SRO officer there is minimal property damage in and around the school, prevention of that damage, prevention of injuries from staff and students, reduction in the need to call police, because police are right here with us, and a increased likelihood that students will get the help that they need. So there's probably a lot of other ones, but those are some that I highlighted. I also want to share with you some frequently asked SRO questions. So would the SRO address behavior issues? Because I think sometimes people think that, okay, if this, school to pipeline to prison kind of idea, that if you have an SRO officer, then that kid's going to get in trouble and it's going to be all the way through and they're going to be arrested, and that's actually not true. The SRO officer would not interact with behavior matters. It would still stay with the assistant principals to continue with working with students with behavior issues, unless something became legal where we would need to call the police in. And then they would handle that big part of it. The SRO officer would meet regularly with school administration so that everyone was working on the same goals. Would the SRO officer wear a body camera? As of January 2025, it's mandated by law in accordance with the Norwich Police Department policies that all officers wear a body-worn camera. And I believe actually Norwich will have that even sooner than that law.
We're hoping.
We hope. So when doing business as official police business, the camera would be activated. But during the day when they're doing their day-to-day activities, walking around, working with kids, talking with kids, in meetings, they would not activate their cameras. Would a parent guardian get notified if a student is suspected of criminal activity and is questioned by the SRO? Yes, Illinois School Code requires law enforcement officers and school resource officers to notify parents and take reasonable steps to include parents and school mental health professionals when detaining or questioning students on school grounds. That would not change. That would continue. You would still notify parents and then also school mental health professionals. And finally, how does an SRO protect students from potential school threats? SRO officers, this is pretty obvious, are the only armed and trained professionals in the building. They are trained to neutralize threats and to minimize injuries, which is a different skill set that we don't currently have within the schools. Any questions so far on those?
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Under the frequently asked questions about the body camera, there's a distinction between police business and day-to-day activities.
Correct.
Can you clarify what would constitute police business then within the school?
Sure, absolutely. So basically, if I'm going to take police action, I'm going to activate my body camera. And that's no different than any officer out on the street. So if I have my body camera on and I come up to you on the roadway and I just want to strike up a conversation with you, my body camera is not activated.
Okay.
We're just having a conversation. All of a sudden, if it elevates to the level of, oh, somebody runs by and says, hey, she just stole my purse. Well, now I'm going to activate my body camera. Now I'm going to conduct my investigation. Yeah, I know, right. They all say that. But so that would be no different than in school. If I'm talking to kids within the school, body camera's not activated, teachers, et cetera, whatever. But if somebody comes up and says, hey, Johnny just punched Jimmy in the gym, can you go investigate? Well, I'm going to activate my body camera and we're going to conduct our investigation. The body camera will be running during that.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
So it's the same officer in the building, so if they're out sick one day, is it just like another officer comes in?
So that's a potential for, we try to call in a substitute, right? Just like teachers.
Right.
We have some other officers that are SRO trained, and if they're available, we try to get them into the school. It's not always possible, but in those cases, you wouldn't have an officer in the school, but we would know that the SRO is not here, so we would take some extra passes, maybe some extra walkthroughs, especially if the SRO says, hey, I got to call in sick, but hey, there's some issues going on, and these are the issues. We would try to double check on that. It's not always possible to get a backup officer here, but we would certainly try as much as we can.
In that case, with the officer, would they report to Ms. Busick and say, I'm not going to be today, or does that go to you and then it goes to her?
It would be both. Whoever Ms. Busick wants them to report to that sickness, whether it's a principal or whoever that would be, but they would have to call us as well. So we can't have them saying, I'm sick, but we got to make sure that all the bases are covered.
Okay, thank you.
I have two questions. First,
You only get one.
so it mentioned comprehensive auto insurance coverage. What would that be for?
That's something I would honestly I would have to check on. That's just taken right from the Ridgewood one. So I don't know if that's something because sometimes Elliot, our SO there, does drive the bus for different reasons. So I don't know if that's why that's in there. So that's something I would have to check on. But also during the school checks and that, they would be driving a Norwich squad, which they would be covered by Norwich insurance during that time. But maybe at times they would go in the principal's car, to do checks or whoever's doing the checks with them. So that's something that I would have to look at to see why that's in there.
Okay. And then the second question is, and you're going to tell I'm a finance person. So does it need to be 40 hours a week? Or did we negotiate 20 hours a week? And then if we had that tournament and we had to have them come for greater than the agreed upon, let's say 20 hours a week, and we could just pay the difference, or does it have to be 40 hours a week?
For continuity purposes, yes, because what we do is this is, you say you're gonna take Officer A as your SRO, well, we're gonna hire a new officer to cover that person's spot on the street, okay? And so, if you're only wanted for 20 hours and now you're not paying 75% of that, we're doing this so that, we need a backfill for that officer. So for continuity purposes, yes, 40 hours.
Okay, thank you.
And ideally, for that relationship building purpose, you want somebody here, if you're gonna do this, you want them here all the time, because that person is gonna know the ins and the outs of the kids and the students and the teachers, and they're gonna know how everything works and flows, and they're gonna build those relationships with the kids. And, that's really I think the benefit of this. They can find problems out before those problems happen, and hopefully, head those off at the pass.
Okay, thank you.
Can you speak to the training that's involved? You
Sure,
just
for
mentioned
the SRO, yeah. The SROs, they all have to go to a certified school resource officer class, which is state mandated, and that's 40 hours, and then they go through continuing education, throughout that. And your SROs, we wouldn't just pick somebody and say, "Yep, this is the officer you're getting." We would put it out to our officers. We would interview whoever puts in for it. We would narrow it down because we kind of know who would be a good fit for the SRO spot, and then we would narrow it down to like 2 or 3. And then we would pass it off, to the school for you guys to decide out of those, who do you want? Because ultimately they're going to be working with you 75% of the time, right? Or 100% of the time, but except summers and that. But so we want you guys to have a choice in who you guys want. However, you guys decide to make that choice. So, but the train, and then we send them through trainings throughout the year as well, continuing education.
And you encourage them to take their vacation when they go into it, they realize.
Yes, when they during that interview process, it would be, hey, listen, summers, spring breaks, Christmas break, that's when you need to take your vacations. There's some one-offs every once in a while. Maybe they're getting married and it's during the school year and they're going to go on their honeymoon. In those cases, we would backfill for them as well. So. Yes.
In terms of cost, have we gotten there yet, or is it still depending on the experience of the officer?
It depends on the experience of the officer and what rate of pay they're at. It's I can give you the year 1 to year 10 if you want. We would never give you a year 1 officer, that's for sure. We would probably be looking at I would say, don't quote me on it, year 4. Because you want somebody who's experienced. But basically, the breakdown: a year 1 officer starts at about $64,000 a year. Wait, let me get to the right year. Sorry, $69,000 a year, and then a year 10 officer, which is our top pay, is at $108,000 a year. So you fall somewhere in that range.
And then, do you know what our cost saving would be for the residency cost?
I believe that we planned for $10,000 now for the residency firm, so that went out. That's our budget. I don't think we've spent that much, but that's what we know.
Question. So, because this district is always like food code, if we were to take on an SRO officer and find a way to split the hours, we could still get the auxiliary officer to drop by as they have and support with drills, and at least our Ridgewood officer to drop by sometimes too.
Well, I'm not going to speak for you, but I would think that if we needed an SRO in the way that we need the Ridgewood officer, we would use our own.
Right.
Yeah. I know that they will support us at hurdles. Safety meetings. Yeah. Safety meetings actually are mandated. They have to be with us for those.
and speaking on the auxiliary officer that's here, that's Ross, and he's a great guy, and he is a great person. When he decides that he is done, working and retired, that spot is going to be eliminated, the auxiliary spot. So we are phasing those out. So that won't be around when Ross decides he doesn't want to be here anymore. And he's a guy that could do it any day because he's at that point in his life.
Do you recommend 1 officer or 2 officers? 1 officer at each school, or 1 officer for both schools?
So I mean, that's a decision that ultimately you guys would have to make, and I'd be happy to have a further conversation or more in-depth conversation about that. If you are going to do an SRO, I would definitely recommend an SRO at Giles, full-time, 40 hours a week. Lee, I don't see the need for it, but that's something that I don't want to make that decision. My fear, if you had a SRO at Lee, would that they would not be doing a lot throughout the school day. We talked about some other options because I know traffic at Lee is an issue of hiring officers back at an overtime rate. That would be a lot cheaper than an SRO, paying 75% of their salary. You could hire 2 officers because right now we send officers here when they're available, right? Because they're coming from day shift or they're coming from afternoon shift. But if the calls are, emergency calls they get called out and they're split between 2 schools. But if you had 2 officers dedicated here, we could potentially, investigate that idea. And I think that would be a cost savings, but be more beneficial for what the issue is at Lee. I don't think Lee has the issues at Giles. And let me say this too, having an SRO to school, it's not a catch-all, right? It's not going to prevent every problem from happening, but it is going to build those relationships with the kids. And sometimes you get students that come up to that officer on the side and tell them things that are going on, because the people that we try to put in the schools are relationship builders. They're police officers, they're social workers, they're teachers. They wear many hats, and so hopefully they can build those relationships and again, like I said, prevent some of those things from occurring.
The next slide, I just shared with you some data. In District 401, which is Almond Park, now they're a unit district, so they are kindergarten all the way through high school. They have 1 SRO officer in high school and then 1 that they split between all their other schools, but their main office is at the middle school. District 234, which is Ridgewood, they have 1 SRO officer. District 212, which is the Leiden schools, they have 1 at each school. And then all the others don't have any SROs. So all of our elementary districts, Fine Park, Union Ridge, Rhodes, River Groves, Rosemont, Manheim, Berkeley, Pennoyer, Schiller Park, they do not currently have an SRO. So just give you that data. And then the last slide that I included here, future considerations, so things that we can think about. The first consideration is staying with what we currently have in place. We have the auxiliary officer until he decides that he's going to retire.
And not to interrupt you, but another option at that point is, if you'd like that 1 hour a day at each school, you could hire somebody back on overtime. We used to do that when I was at Addison before I was with Norwich, and our high school had their full-time SRO, but they also hired an officer every morning for 3 hours. 1 hour they did traffic in the morning, the next 2 hours they walked the halls of the school. They just like that extra body at the school, and it freed the SRO up to do things during the day, like truants and checks, etc., things like that. And then our junior high at Addison had an SRO, full-time SRO. Those are options that are out there.
So that first one being that we can stay where we are, we can have the auxiliary officer, the support that we receive, the education we receive, and then access to the SRO when we need access to the SRO. The second is to investigate additional layers, kind of as Chief Goss was talking about, having 1 or 2, a hybrid model, having 1 that goes between both schools, or as he was just mentioning, paid traffic support. When we look at what it is that we need, and the conversation that we had is Lee has a lot of issues with traffic. And it's not just a lot of cars. It is a lot of cars in a lot of places, but it's a lot of people not following rules. And while we're grateful for the officers that we have when they're here, when they can be here, this would look different. This would be someone that we actually would pay to be here, to be out of their cars, to be working with families, to be kind of training families, to be writing tickets when appropriate, to be having much more of a pulse on our traffic. So that is an option too, as you just mentioned, having some paid time for traffic, or also a couple hours in the school day. So kind of that hybrid model. And we can continue researching funding, looking at funding through fees, through grants. I'm not aware of a grant right now that we can apply for, but we'll continue looking at that and continue looking at district funds. We did have a conversation with our auditors on if we were looking at going with SROs and what funds we could take that out of. And it is possible to take that out of safety funds, out of operations and maintenance. So that doesn't necessarily have to hit the ed fund. So something we need to consider and think about. Because if we can fund it a little more creatively, that would be good. But what's important to note, in fact tonight, Chief Goss did swear in a new officer, but they don't currently have, like let's say we decided tomorrow we want an SRO at Giles, they don't currently have someone for us. Because we would be taking away one of their officers. So that is something they have to plan for on their side as well. So we would be looking at, we have the option of the after work overtime.
Yes, the caveat to that would be if officers do not take it, like if if we don't get anybody to sign up for it, we can't force them to do it because it is an overtime, auxiliary detail. So that's always a possibility. You could get 2 officers sign up one day and then the next day they're like, 2 officers, no, we're not doing it. So that could be sporadic. You can't force them to do that.
But if we had an SRO, we can write in the job description that part of their day is spent in traffic.
Yes, correct.
No matter what building they're in. Any other questions?
The presentation. Thank you, Chief Goss.
Thank you very much for coming to our meeting. I know you had to run from your meeting, so thank you very much.
Need anything else?
I think
All
we're
right.
good.
Thank you. Thank
I'll
you guys so
continue
much.
to follow up.
All right, absolutely.
To administrative reports. Superintendent Mrs. Boozy.
Yeah, I just have one thing that I guess could have been in Celebrate for Success tonight as well. But one of our teachers, the second one 2 years in a row, a new teacher, sorry, let me start that over. One of our preschool teachers has been nominated for the Golden Apple Award. Yeah, very exciting. So we'll hear in about February where her status is with that. That's Rachel Calvert, a preschool teacher from our wonderful preschool team. And last year, Felix Saji was nominated as well. So two teachers, 2 years, very exciting. We're really happy about that. And that's the only thing I have in my report. Everything else is in my district.
Special education, Mr. Masters.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a quick celebration. We were able to hold our very first parent university specifically for special education. The inaugural one was not as focused on special education. However, we wanted to really empower our community and the parents to really take away some really key things that you can do at home to help your child if they're struggling at home. We focused a lot on 4 key areas: reading, math, executive functioning, which is kind of like if you want to think of it like your air traffic control center of your brain, making sure that you can kind of keep all those moving parts going, and then behavior, which was probably the most discussed piece, as many people might guess. It was great that we got some of that feedback, so very exciting. The parents really thought that it was very informative, so very exciting to hear that. A couple quick updates is our special education committee has continued to work on a number of different projects. More recently, we talked a lot about our Facilitate the IEP process, which is basically how we run our IEPs. We want to include our parents much more actively, and that is something that I think that our team is focusing on specific ways that we can kind of continue that conversation, not make it feel as isolating. They can be very intimidating, so that's been our focus for a while now. We're also working on incorporating our ELL educators into our IEP meetings, and we're also looking at some replicative formats for some of our IEP documents to make it just a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more cohesive for our teams to basically pick up and see where a child is at, make sure that they understand all of those pieces that happen in those meetings. We all are also looking at writing rubrics, kind of a standard across for our special education students, so we're doing a lot of things at once, but very, very good work. In preschool, I actually had a wonderful opportunity to meet with Vivian Policki, who is at West 40, and talk a little bit more about MTSS. This was an interesting opportunity. MTSS at the preschool level is very different. You might have heard something about our Tier 2, Tier 3 committees. At preschool, they don't really have some of those same pieces where, we're not necessarily learning all of our reading and math skills. We're learning more about play and how to integrate. So that's been a little bit of a nuanced approach to it that I'm looking to support our preschool with. So that's been really interesting. And then lastly, our assistive technology piece continues. We have been refining that process. We've been working again with West 40, and then all three of our speech language pathologists have been supporting actually one of our families to actually get a device of their own to use at home. So we actually have devices that we will model that same application that they can use to communicate. We have that here at the school, but then also helping the family go through their private insurance to actually get their device so that their child has that. So it's a continuous communication mode throughout all of their settings. So very exciting. We're still working through a lot of pieces, but step in the right direction for soon.
Very good. For the reports, Giles School, Mr. Biet.
Yes, thank you very much. 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip is set for May 20th through the 22nd. We currently have 49 students registered, along with 3 chaperones and 2 staff. The 7th grade Springfield trip is set up for May 13th. It is $175. A flyer and a blast message has gone out to the families, and families are currently registering. I do not have the totals yet, but as soon as I receive them, I'll share them with the Board of Ed. I'd like to thank the PTA for the Giles Holiday Pop-Up Shop. It was yesterday and today, and it allowed our students to shop for family, friends for the holidays. So thank you to the PTA for that. Just as a reminder, January 19th is our 5th and 6th grade winter dance, and January 26th, both are Fridays, is our 7th and 8th grade winter dance from 6 to 8 p.m. Every Monday, NAMI holds a parent group to provide support. Lee, it's at 5 p.m. Giles, it is at 6:30 p.m. And then during the month of January is the big month for us for our testing, our winter testing. So we'll have our NWEA MAP test for ELA, our NWEA MAP test for math, our CBM fluency, and that's for 5th grade only. We'll do our iReady reading, and then My Sabers, which is an SEL assessment tool for students, and then Sabers is which the advisory teachers take in regards to student SEL. So all that data will be collected in January. At the end of January, we'll have a data day, which we'll go review all of our data and then start our new groups the month of February. So we're always excited to collect our new data and provide that support to our students in need. And that concludes my report, unless you have any questions.
No, thank you. The school,
Thank you. So I want to say thank you to the PTA for hosting Santa's workshop last week. That was really exciting. Not only a way to raise some funds, but also to provide some items for students to purchase for family and friends at a less expensive price point than they might find at some of the stores. We saw some really nice gift sets and things that were in there. I picked up a few things myself, so just want to say thank you for the PTA for putting that together. We had our progress reports released on December 1st for that first trimester, and last Wednesday, room parents came in to deck the halls. We had a very festive feel to our hallways right now with some decorating of classroom doors that took place, and right now we're doing some voting to see who may win in different categories, but there's definitely some very creative doors out there, and it's actually just one of my favorite times, just kind of seeing all the liveliness in the school, and with all of our kind of like feel good stuff with giving back, and just having done the food drive and then the coin drive, and just kind of seeing how the community can invest in one another and support one another. Just makes me feel proud to be here. So that's always just a feel good time of the year. Also want to put out there that every Monday, NAMI is holding parent groups. We have a 5 p.m. group here at Lee,
I believe starting next month, they'll be shifting those parent groups to Eisenhower Library. So we'll send out some information on that. Also coming up in January, we have our winter testing that'll be coming up with iWriting, Math, and Reading, and our CBM Oral Reading Fluency Assessment, as well as the SAVERS SED Screener. And just wanted to give just a touch point on our committees here at Lee and the hard work that they're doing. Our School Culture and Climate Committee has been working really hard on trying to identify different strategies for reducing the number of students who are chronically absent, as well as trying to come up with ideas to increase the family engagement. I think we do have a lot of support from families, but we want to make sure that we're connecting and, bringing our families in and being able to support one another. And one of the ways we're going to do that is by going through the survey that I believe was shared with all of you previously, and to kind of come up with some strategies to help support in those areas. Our PBIS Tier 2 and Tier 3 committee, we're still working on some of our entry and exit criteria for students who may need some Tier 2 support. So there's some fine-tuning and revising. We're building a system, and when you're building that system, sometimes you have to think about what's going well and what are some things that we need to fine-tune to make it better. So that's kind of what we're living through at the moment. And also the next phase of that is, okay, so now that we've started to build this system and we're making some adjustments, how do we monitor that system for fidelity and make sure that we're following all those pieces? So that's the main focus of that committee. Our Academic Intervention Committee, last month we reviewed our oral reading fluency data and started to develop some Tier 1 plans for each grade level to focus on that area. And that's something that we're going to continue at our next meetings tomorrow, and trying to see what each grade level can do to help continue to work on that oral reading fluency as a grade level. And currently our Science and Social Studies committees are teaming up to collaborate on their scope and sequence. So here at Lee, one thing that's a little bit different from Giles is that we split up science or social studies. We're not necessarily teaching both of those at the same time, because we're trying to, we have a larger number of minutes that we focus on ELA throughout the day. So half a trimester would be social studies and the other half would be science. So we're working on building that scope and sequence so it's kind of a seamless transition, and we have that outline from kindergarten through 4th grade with what is taught at which time of year. So just wanted to share that with you because I think it's important for you to know the work that happens during those committee days when we have those daily days.
Thanks so much. Discipline reports, Giles versus parents.
This month there's one suspension to report. It was an in-school suspension in violation of board policy 7:199 and 21.
At Lee School, in the last month, we've had 3 in-school suspensions in violation of board policy 7:199.
The December staffing report is attached to board book for the board. We are looking at 2 additional positions being approved tonight. One is the 3rd preschool room, which I'll speak a little bit more about in my discussion items, and then one is a seasonal temporary position for the Buildings and Grounds Committee.
Thank you. Board committees, all of which Education Board, Development, Building and Grounds, Behavioral Intervention, Negotiations and Human Resources, Finance, Communications, and Village Park District are addressed through our agendas anyway, but special note that Building and Grounds is going to be covered in Superintendent Mrs. Guzik's discussion items. There's always lots of things happening. And Communications Committee is working on a date to discuss plans and its development. Oh.
Committee met on December 11th.
Good. Other than that, no other board committee news. On to discussion items.
So I have several discussion items tonight that kind of fit under 6 different areas. Beginning with our district theme. Our December theme is positivity. So this month at Lee and Giles, we are focusing on being positive, and that's a very important trait in believing in District 80. Today you received the financial audit results, so that annual financial reports and supplemental information that you received that's yours to keep at your seat tonight. So some general information about the FY23 audit. Our total expenditures for FY23 were $14,012,771. Our total direct revenues for FY23 were $13,824,682, which left us with a surplus for FY23 of $188,089. The operating expenditure per pupil came out to $11,394. That number we'll see in the future as we go forward with the Illinois School Report Card. And our per capita tuition charge. So this was if someone wanted to pay tuition for attending Norwich School District 80 and it was approved through policy, that would be $10,674. The difference between the the operating expenditure per pupil and the per capita tuition, you remove the categorical revenue. So food service revenue, Medicaid, rental revenue, some grant revenue, you would remove from that, and that's the difference in those two categories. The audit had no findings. And it did note also that with the composition and procedures that we have in place in the district office, we are working to increase our attention to our internal controls. We're being proactive and working with the auditors to maintain fiscal transparency and compliance. We're very happy with the audit. Tonight on the board action item is the acceptance of the FY23 audit. And then that audit needs to be turned into West 40, who will turn it into the Illinois State Board of Education. That's to be turned into West 40 by December 15th. So we'll get that to West 40 by Friday. Any questions about the audit? If anything comes up after you take a look at it, we can go through it with you. Just an update on where we are with the 23-24 outstanding fees. As you know, the board decided back in February of 2023 that kindergarten and at the point was preschool tuition, but let me just focus on kindergarten tuition right now. Kindergarten tuition is due by December 31st, and if the tuition is not paid, then full-time students will have to be moved to half-day. We've communicated that with parents, sent individual emails, made phone calls. We still have $37,000 of outstanding kindergarten tuition that we are working on collecting. We have $36,000 of curriculum fees outstanding and $12,000 in band fees outstanding. The band fees, many people paid their band fees initially at the beginning when they were in concert or cadet. A lot of that is beginning bands and start up. So we're working hard to collect that. We have informed families that fees are due December 15th, and if they're not paid, they will be turned over to the collection agency that we were working with. Any questions about outstanding fees?
So you know how we do the kindergarten, we don't pay moving for band, is there anything, do they still continue in band, or?
We don't have policy on that right now, but it's something we can explore. But we don't have a policy on that. For kindergarten and preschool, we have a policy. Yeah. Now for preschool, I have contacted all the preschool families and actually asked them to hold off on paying tuition right now. Most likely, all of our families that are currently paying tuition are going to qualify under PFA. So we will actually be reducing tuition in the month of January to our families who have paid so far. So we have asked them to stop paying so that we don't have to refund more money to them. But when you have a student who is qualified for PFA, they can't pay anything. So fees, tuition fees, food fees, so we provide SNAP through PFA as well. So in that same idea, it is time to start to talk about 24-25 proposed fees. And all I have for you today are the preschool and kindergarten fees, which I am proposing to keep the same. Now you might ask, why are we talking about preschool fees? In the event that we have over 100 students in preschool, we still have to pass a fee. Now, most likely, no one will pay it, but who knows? If we have 120 kids in preschool, 20 kids would not qualify for the grant, and then we would be looking at tuition. So we just have to pass it. I'm not asking you to pass it tonight. I'm just proposing these fees to you, and then we would be looking at passing these fees in January. Typically, preschool kindergarten registration starts in February. So we pass these a little earlier so that the parents who sign up in February are aware of what the tuition and what the curriculum is. Currently, right now, tuition is $2,800 for both. Curriculum is $170. As you may recall, we did an increase in the 23-24 school year. I am projecting right now for 24-25 that we sustain those fees, the $2,800 and the $170. And then we continue, which we feel was quite successful, our early bird discount, which we did by August 1st, which takes that both of those fees down 5%. We have parents, when they sign up for preschool kindergarten, they have to sign a sheet that explains that they have to have their fees paid by December 31st, which will continue again to December 31st of 2024, or not be allowed to attend preschool if that's the case, or to move to half-day kindergarten. Next month, I'm also going to speak to you about some changes in our full-day, half-day kindergarten program. Dr. Rabiola has been working with the kindergarten team. As you may recall, one of our district strategic goals is to provide more ELA and math for our half-day students. Currently, our half-day students are here for 2.5 hours, which is just 2 hours and 40 minutes. Very quick day. So they've been working very hard on a new plan for kindergarten full day and half day, and we'll present that to you next month. Any questions about those fees? So through the ELL audit that we went through in November, we learned of a program that is called Visiting International Teacher that the Illinois School Board of Education, ISB, has designed. And this program sponsors teachers under what's called the Department of State's Budget Bridge USA program. So what this program does is it finds teachers that are in another country that might be the language that you need in your school for bilingual teachers. For example, both of our schools, since we have 20 or more students who qualify for Polish ELL services, we are required to have bilingual Polish services. So we would, if we entered into an agreement with them, we would say, we are looking for Polish-speaking teachers. They then can find a Polish-speaking teacher. We would interview the teacher just like our regular interviewing process. And if that is a good match, then we can look at that teacher coming to the United States for a 3-year program. If in some time during those 3 years we don't feel it's a right fit, they don't feel a right fit, we can certainly say, no thank you, we don't want to continue it. If it is a great fit, you can have it for 3 years with the ability to renew for 2 more years. I think it's something we should look into. And I would like to move forward with signing off an interest statement to the Illinois School Board of Education, just letting them know our languages that that we need some services in. It's not, if I turn in this form to them, it does not mean that we 100% go with the program. It just puts our name on a list, and then they would start searching for. Currently, right now, Giles qualifies for Polish and Ukrainian bilingual, And Lee qualifies for Spanish, Polish, and Ukrainian. So I'd like to move forward with that if the board is all right with me moving forward, just putting in an interest statement and then seeing what happens. As you know, there's a very large teacher shortage, and especially a large bilingual teacher shortage. So this could be a really great way for us to bring in some teachers that would be able to help our bilingual students. There is a little bit of a change in the program where we would, so if the teacher came over and they have to be proficient in English as well, we would be required for 2 weeks to put them up in a hotel or an extended stay for 2 weeks. And then after the 2 weeks, they would move to their own apartments. They know that they have to get their own transportation, and after that they are obviously getting paid from the district because they're getting hired as first-year teachers, and then they would continue taking care of themselves. But for that first 2 weeks when they come here, we would be required to put them up somewhere for those 2 weeks.
You said that's a grant?
No, we would still pay the person, but it would just be like hiring a first-year teacher because they're coming in as first-year teachers. It's just a program that they put together in order to help. It has a big cultural component, help share education. So I'd like to move forward in turning that, and it is due at the end of this month. And again, that does not hold us to have to be involved in it, just says permission. Is that all right with everyone? You have a copy of the proposed 24-25 district calendar. It's that time of the year again. I have worked with Union Ridge and Ridgewood on these dates. They do line up as far as their winter break and their spring break. Penoyer this year is going towards the main calendar. So I don't think we line up completely with Penoyer, but most of Penoyer students go to the main school district after Penoyer, so they're lining up with their calendars. We're lining up with Ridgewood. So we're looking at our first day, about the same time, August 19th for teachers, August 21st for students. Winter break, that would be that December 23rd through January 6th. So that is that whole week before of the holiday, the week after, and then we currently have right now the Monday that we turn as a teacher institute, one of our 4 allowed teacher institute days. So the students actually would be out those 2 weeks in a day. They come back on the 7th. Spring break is a little bit later than it typically is, but it kind of always moves around a little bit between the end of the whole week being in March and then part of the week being in March and part of the week being in April. And then our last day is June 12th. If no emergency days are used, then it would be June 5th. So we are required to have, in kindergarten through 8th grade, 176 student attendance days. And then you have 4 teacher institute days. So the calendar is 180 days. The preschool calendar, PFA calendar, is a little bit different. There you only have 168 days of student attendance because the other days to make up to the 180, minus the 4 days for teacher institute, are screening days and parent home visit days. Back in November, the last Friday in November, our teachers went out to 15 different families on home visits, and that is a requirement of the program that people go out. So that calendar is a little different. Same start time, same end time. There's just, it's basically the last Friday of every month is either screening day or home visit day. So that's the difference between those two. I'm not bringing this to you for approval tonight, but I will bring this to you for approval in January. Just a buildings and grounds update, and these things are on the agenda tonight. As you might recall, a couple of months ago, the board approved us to go out to bid for the chiller installation. So these are the last final chillers that we're replacing that are ESSER funded. There's 1 chiller for Giles and 2 chillers for Lee. So we went out to bid, we opened the bids last week. And this is for the installation of the chillers. So we're asking the board to approve that tonight. You have all the information in your board packet. We were actually really happy when these bids came in. We were expecting them to be a little higher. So $135,000, and then we did opt for package B, which adds valves on each side, so that if eventually we want to add some piping to connect the valves we can, but we're not actually doing the connection of piping right now. We have the 3 bids. The next section that we're asking you to approve tonight are so we've been talking a lot about the BAS system. This is the system that controls the opening and closing of the valves on the chillers or on the heat. So if you set, like we want this room to be 72 degrees, then it's able to read that and then open up to get the air into 72 or close to get the air to 72. So we've been updating that system and we've spent a lot of time and worked with Train on it. However, this is the last part. So this is the contract for service. So included in the contract for service are 4 site visits, inspections a year, the support of daily phone calls, free software updates, priority service if we need anything, system security against ransomware, and then monitoring and point and schedules. This is kind of the last piece that we need in the BAS system. This is a 3-year contract that we are looking at entering into. And then the last piece is the order for the furniture for the new admin area that if you'd like to see that tonight, although I don't think there's any lights in that room right now, so we would have to use our phones. But they have studded out both of those. The drywall up there, they do the studs up, running all of the wires for the electric. So that part's going very good. Unfortunately, we have found out that doors are in back order. There seems to be a problem with doors everywhere, so we're not sure if we will receive the doors before the projected time, which was the end of February. We might be looking at mid-March. I mentioned it in my do you want me to talk about it? Okay. There is on the agenda tonight the B&G part seasonal worker. Approval. I did want to share with you something I'm really proud of with the B&G committee as well. Some things that Derek has been working on since he came on board with us. One of them I want to highlight is we did go out to bid for garbage services. We had been out of contract with garbage services for several years and really just not put attention to it. We were paying $35,000 a year for garbage services, that's the garbage collection. But after going through the bid process, we now spend $7,000 per year, which over 3 years is a savings of $84,000. The next thing that I want to point out to you that Derek did bring to us also is we were paying $2,000 a month for 6 unused phone lines that were previously dedicated to alarm monitoring. We did discontinue those lines and we now pay $80 a month for cell lines for each school's elevator. Those were for the elevators, which it has saved in a 12-month period $23,000 to our O&M budget and funds. And then this year, you'll remember back in August, we were spending about $17,000 per year with Johnson Controls with monitoring and our burglar alarm components. We're now paying $2,000 a year for our fire alarm and our burglar alarm. So that saves about $15,000 a year. So taking those 3 things together with putting some attention and working and having a person in place that has really saved over a 3-year process $200,000. So really proud of the work that they've been doing, our B&G team, and that really does help us to be able to fund future projects. Because if we're not spending that money there, we can be spending money somewhere else. So just want to highlight that for you, really proud of them. They're looking at all areas and how we can, even the small bits of money, help. Any questions about the projects? Okay, just to do a grant update, the Preschool for All grant. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be refunding tuition for newly admitted students. So these might be students who are on a wait list or students who are currently in our program. Because if a student didn't qualify for the grant when we only have 34 spaces, many of them still came to our program with paying tuition. I'm hoping to open the 3rd room on January 16th. I do have an individual on the agenda tonight. I'm super excited about. She has experience with PFA programs, and I think will be a great addition to our program. We'll continue to screen students, so if anyone has a student who is 2 years, or child who's 2 years to 10 months, up to 5 years old, contact Tammy, and we have a next screening on December 19th, and that is actually in the evening from 3:30 to 6 o'clock. So we are starting, Dr. Rabiola and Mrs. Carnell and I had a meeting with a playground company, so we're starting to just have some conversations that would be funded out of the PFA grant. So our focus is looking at a playground that is appropriate for 2 to 5-year-olds. We're looking at the north field. So this would be right outside the door of where those classrooms are currently located. Very fenced in area, very safe. But we would be actually adding a fence around that actual playground. We're looking also at adding some storage out there as well, because we have a lot of outdoor equipment that we want to be able to keep outside, like all the little tricycles and they have little picnic tables, and have some storage for that. So kind of looking at phasing that in over the next couple of years. I asked PTA if I can come and speak with them in January. I'm actually not looking for funds, which is unusual. I'm just looking for some design input, and then I'm hoping that we can put together a community build as we did with the red playground that's in the courtyard. That was a great savings, and it was a really great event for the community. So many people that came and helped build that playground. It just really felt great. So we're hoping for something this summer, and again, it'll be grant through the PFA grant with a ADA accessible with that nice rubbery bottom part, which we would love to eventually put into the courtyard playground. So we are looking into that as well. And then finally, the board had asked me to come up with the teacher ratios for the Illinois School Report Card. I know I reported those to you previously, but I did want to report that for the record. And obviously, all of my reports are on our website under the Board of Education, so just wanted to have that for anyone else that might want to see that as well. Norwich is 19 students to 1 teacher, all the way down to Rosemont, which is 8 students to 1 teacher. And then there's pretty much everything else in between. Any questions on that? And just let you know, our future meeting in January, we're going to be talking about our curriculum fees for 1st through 8th grade. And then if you haven't had a chance to really do a nice deep dive into those policy 113s, we're going to do that in January, because there are some of those policies that we have to make some decisions about. And I think I mentioned to you last month, the big policies that we expected in 113, the bully policy, the Title IX policy, those did not come out yet. They're now saying March. But there are some specific things in 113 that the board needs to decide, like, yes, we want to go with this, or no, we don't want to go with this. Typically, we're usually only looking at some minor changes on policy, but there are 4 of them that we need to go a little deeper with. I will send them to you before next meeting, and then present them to you next meeting, so we can make some decisions on what we'd like to do. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Good news, and please tell Derek and the company how grateful we are for saving parking over what they do. Consent agenda 16A through 16F. Can I get a motion for their approval?
Motion. Second.
Lauren and Molly, roll call.
Ms. Urbach Barnfield. Mrs. Deck.
Yes.
Mrs. Lala.
Yes.
Mrs. McPhillips.
Yes.
Mrs. Theodore.
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio.
Yes, the motion passes. Action items, I'm going to read all 4 and then motion for those. 17A, consider approval of the 2023 tax levy resolution and certificate of the tax levy. 17B, consider approval of the resolution to levy 2023 taxes for certain purposes. 17C, consider approval of the resolution to instruct the county clerk how to appropriate 2023 tax levy extension reduction. 17D, Consider acceptance of the fiscal year 23 district audit and annual finance report. Can I get a motion to approve 17A through 17D?
Motion. Second.
All set, everyone. All right.
Who's first?
Maria and Claire. Oh, Maria and Amanda.
Okay, Mrs. Lala,
Yes.
Mrs. McPhillips,
Yes.
Mrs. Deck,
Yes.
Mrs. Urbach Barnfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Theodore, Mr. Trabuzio.
Yes. Motion passes. Any board comments?
Did we not make a decision, or did we ever make a decision on parade?
Yes, I'm sorry. We are Saturday, 11:30, we find Savior at platform.
Just one small comment. I know last month we brought up the whole issue with the parking spots around Giles. And I've had the occasion to be out there a couple times, like at night at 5 o'clock when extracurricular activities are letting out and kids are walking in between cars trying to cross the streets and almost getting hit by cars. Have we spoken to, I think it was
I do have an appointment with Mr. Tanner.
Okay.
It just hasn't happened yet between his families.
Yeah. Thank you.
We will speak over winter break.
Consider a motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, and review of closed session minutes.
Motion. Second.
Lauren and Amanda, all in favor? Aye. All against, same. And we will close session in 5 minutes.
We're gonna go to Sean's.
10:39. We'll proceed with 20 action item. 20A, motion to expel student 2024-01 for a period of 2 calendar years, subject to review and approval by superintendent and legal counsel of conditions for the student to return safely on or after the start of the 24-25 school year. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Amanda, Molly, roll call.
Mrs. McPhillips,
Yes.
Mrs. Deck,
Yes.
Mrs. Lala,
Yes.
Mrs. Urbach Barnfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Theodore,
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio.
Yes. Personnel action items. Employment, consider motion to approve lead preschool teacher. 2, consider motion to approve Jacob Enos, buildings, grounds, and maintenance seasonal assistant. 1, consider motion to approve job description for a program coordinator for student services, being for preschool for all, and the multilingual English language learners program. Can I get a motion for 21A to 21B?
Motion.
Second.
Lauren, Amanda, roll call.
Mrs. Urbach Barnfield,
Yes.
Mrs. McPhillips,
Yes.
Mrs. Theodore,
Yes.
Mrs. Lala,
Yes.
Mrs. Deck,
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio.
Yes, motion passes. And now for board meeting reflections.
Well, tomorrow's the other boy's birthday.
Again, a reminder, Saturday, if you want to be involved in with District 80 float, let's call it, for Christmas. Lightsaber, love.
Everybody else blew it off.
Everyone during their reflection? I need a motion to adjourn this meeting at 10:43. All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. The meeting's now adjourned.